Good morning, staff, and welcome to another one of our staff developments in which we're looking at how we can increase student achievement as we've been looking at throughout the year. One of our focuses today is going to be on motivation and basically looking at how we can get the most out of our students and everyone who works around us. Some of our objectives today in our meeting as we go through this and things I want you to be keeping in mind. Number one, to think about what motivation looks like in your classrooms every day. Also, we're going to define motivation, discuss the important factors involved with motivation, identify three important motivation theories, and then describe each theory's importance and the strengths and weaknesses of each, as I have a few that basically we'll be looking at today and trying to keep those in mind as we go throughout. So first of all, what is motivation? To define it, motivation is necessary to perform all tasks in a job at your highest level. Anytime we're working with students, working with our peers, we want everyone around us to be performing at their highest ability, and that's the biggest thing with motivation. We want all of our students we want every student to come in their classroom and work at their highest level. And so motivation, according to Lunenburg and Ornstein, basically means three things. The person works hard, the person keeps at his or her work, and the person directs his or her behavior toward appropriate goals. And so basically in motivation, we want work ethic, we want them being persistent, and we want them working towards goals, and that's something I'll be hitting on more as we go through this. Three main factors in motivation. One is effort. Anytime we're looking at students that are motivated, they show intensity towards their work, meaning that basically they're working towards their goals. They give effort every single day, and that's what we want our students to show day in, day out. Number two is persistence. They have sustained effort with their work-related activities, not goes to the classroom as well as extracurriculars. Anything they put their mind to, we want them to be persistent, ask questions at all times. Number three is direction. We want the employees' work, in this case our students, to have a sense of direction, basically a sense of what they're trying to accomplish every single day in the classroom. And that really starts with us as teachers, us as administrators. That's what we want to accomplish overall. So we're going to take a look at three motivation theories, and these are three that I've done some research on, and these really stick out to me as ones that really apply to what we're talking about. Number one is the need hierarchy theory by Abraham Maslow. Number two is the motivation hygiene theory by Frederick Herzberg. And number three is the goal setting theory by Edwin Block. All three of these individuals have come up with various motivation theories or ideas that we're going to take a look at as we go through this today. So we'll first start with the need hierarchy theory. First of all, this is one of the most widely used theories in the study of motivation, mainly because it basically defines essentially 5 basic groups of human needs and puts them around in order of importance, basically what we need first, and then from there, as we fulfill those, as they're satisfied, other needs emerge. And anytime we're talking about students and co-workers, we're always looking at what are their basic needs, what do they need to fulfill, and that's basically what the need hierarchy theory describes. So the number one need, and this basically starts off with from number 1 to number 5. Number 1 basically is our lowest needs. So these are fulfilled first, and as they are, as we mentioned earlier, they are later. Others emerge maybe as we go up the scale. But number 1 is the physiological needs, which is basically essentially your things for food, water, and shelter. In all reality, for a case, a lot of our kids in our schools, sometimes when they come to school, they are getting those basic needs. It's not all the time at home they're getting those. So hopefully in that, it may not be for every student, but hopefully it motivates them in some way as they're coming here and feeling that sense of essentially security with those things that are provided. Also, in regards to what else they may be provided, the cafeteria food, those types of things, the heat. I mean, just like you said, they're fulfilling those needs here where they may not be getting them at home. I know we have numerous students at this current school that the physiological needs are maybe met more so at school than they are so at home. Number 2 is safety. We want every student to feel as if they're protected against danger. And we put a lot of things in place in our schools to make sure that we're going through and providing those safe working conditions. We want every environment, every classroom to feel safe. We want fair rules and regulations. And once again, that starts with you as the teacher, making sure that we're providing that safety. The more safety kids feel, the more we're able to put them in out of danger, the more likely they are to be motivated to work. So as that need is fulfilled, we can move on. So the third one is social, which basically is the friendship, the feeling of love that every student, every person needs. And essentially in school, that can be provided through basic friendships they might gather, obviously through their schooling, through extracurriculars, things there. The more friendships they make, the more affection they have, the more they feel part of a group, they can become that, the more likely they are to be motivated in what they need, and that becomes very important. From that, we go to number 4, which is esteem, and that's probably one of the biggest ones on here. For any person, including our students, they need self-respect. They need respect from others. Anytime that they have a self-respect for themselves, they're more likely to work, continue to stick with it, and stick to itness that they need to be motivated. Anytime they can have respect from others, if their students, or their peers, their teachers respect them for their ideas and thoughts, that's major. So in our schools, anytime we can provide recognition, often we'll do end of the year awards, okay, different things there. That's going to make them gain that self-respect, allow them to also gain respect from others, and that is really, really important for any student to become motivated in the classroom, in the school. And the 5th one is self-actualization, which basically is attaining one's full potential. We want to see their capabilities anytime in the classroom. So the skills that they have, it's up to us as teachers to try to get those skills out of them. Whether that's someone's artistic ability, we really push them in that. Sometimes in the classroom, I may have someone I know their skills are that much greater. I want them to be more elaborate on some of their responses, more so than I might think of another student. And so we want to make sure that we're allowing them to realize that, and that's going to be really key for this. So some strengths and weaknesses with those theory. Some of the strengths, first of all, it outlines basic structure and motivation. I mean, it is very basic. It outlines it for us in what we need. Secondly, it lowers the needs must be met before other ones are satisfied. So as they meet those lower physiological needs and so on, as they go throughout the hierarchy, they can satisfy the next. Some weaknesses, some things that maybe are a little bit vague. It's not really a typical step-by-step process, basically meaning that one's has to be fulfilled before you go on the next. So that can be a little bit difficult, and it doesn't necessarily outline ways for us to motivate. There's not things that saying you have to do this to motivate students, which can be a bit of a weakness in all that. So from there we go into the motivation hygiene theory, which basically this one more so outlines factors that cause motivation. So what are those things in a workplace, an environment that are going to increase motivation? Herzberg basically focuses on the actual work environment. Other factors, other theories don't focus on that, so I think this one is really important for us to look at. They develop positive or negative attitudes towards work, and any student in the classroom, they have positives and they have negatives. It can be depending on the day, but a lot of students, if they feel like their work environment is so that it is conducive to learning and that they can go in and fulfill their potential and be motivated, they're going to do that. If there's negative attributes and things in the classroom, it's going to lend itself to a lot of issues, and they're going to be unmotivated to learn. So in this theory, basically, Herzberg conducted research with numerous accountants and engineers in various businesses, and basically looking for this, what he found with his research is that when they felt good about their working conditions, they felt good about their job. And that goes for even for adults, for us teachers, administrators. If we feel good about the conditions of the school, we're obviously going to work harder, we're going to be motivated to do those things. Students are no different. If they feel good about the conditions of the school, of the classroom, of the school, their comfortability with everything, they're more likely to work much more than if they feel like things are really down, and they're not very likely to contribute much. So we talk about the motivation hygiene theory. Some other things with this, some practical applications with it, is that good feelings were associated with the job itself. We call those job satisfiers overall. So examples, students receive achievement, recognition, responsibility. If they can see growth, that may be through things. Their achievement might be through end of the year awards, when they also get recognized for different things. More responsibility. I don't think it's very often. I don't think we put enough responsibility on students. Thus, they are hindered by the lack of responsibility put on them, and then we're not expecting as much out of them. So I think the more responsibility they feel, the more independent that they feel, the more likely they are to be motivated. And the last one is growth. Anytime that students can see growth, and that maybe come from state testing or MAPS testing, if they can see growth and what they're able to do, they're much more motivated. They feel like their job that they're doing is living up to what is expected. Obviously, then on the other end of things, bad feelings associated with the environment, what we call job dissatisfiers, or the hygiene portion of this. So sometimes students might feel policies, the conditions of the classroom or school may not be exactly what they are hoping for. They may feel down about that, whether or not there's a certain rule that they don't agree with in the classroom, something school-wide there. The working conditions aren't so that they can fulfill their potential. They might feel more likely to go about not being as motivated. So essentially the theory relates basically more about what motivates things, more so than just looking at some other factors. So the hygiene factors are those lower level needs that do not lead to satisfaction for students or other things. Motivators, obviously those things that motivate behavior. So we're looking for us as teachers to put those motivation factors into the classroom, things that we need to do, which a lot of times comes from encouragement, showing achievement, those things whenever we can. Some strengths to the motivation hygiene theory. Basically, it's more expanding Maslow's theory, so it's more applicable to work with motivation. So we have some tangible things that we can help motivate students. It puts more emphasis on job factors and work motivation, so looking for actual factors in the classroom makes it a lot more tangible for us to understand. Some weaknesses, a lot of times in our classrooms we know that all learners are motivated differently, and it's difficult to motivate every learner. So we have to find those special things that motivate everyone. And basically the other thing is when do students feel tremendously motivated? When do they come about the idea that they need to gain that motivation, especially intrinsically, and that's things that we're looking at. And the last one is a goal setting theory. I think anytime we're talking about motivation, it's really, really important that we give students goals. If we can give them things that allow them to set goals that are what they're looking for, I think that's really key to motivation, development of some specific goals. So Edwin Locke basically is responsible for developing the goal setting theory. There's two determinants he looked at when he talks about goals. Number one is what the individual's trying to do, and the values, basically what are their beliefs. We have to look at every student, and it's important for us to sit down with them and determine what are your ultimate goals that you want to fulfill, whether that is going to be attaining a 90% average on tests, going to be making sure 90% or 100% of our homework is turned in. We have to establish those. We want to develop strategies to allow them, as he talks about in this goal setting theory, to help them perform. That's what we want to get out of it, is for them to perform better, and that's really, really important. So as he looked at some considerations looking at this, you can consider in your classroom, the more challenging the goal equals higher performance. So if we can make it attainable for them, we get higher performance. Really being specific is awfully, awfully important when considering these. We don't want to say, well, make sure you try to do better. Better is hard to attain. We want to make it specific for them, so it's important we do that. Provide feedback. And anytime in classrooms that we can provide feedback, whether it's one-on-one conversations, excuse me, whether it's also going through and providing things on their papers or quizzes, whatever it may be, we have to provide that feedback for everyone, because then it allows them to compare it against what they actually set as a goal. And then basically commit to goals as they affect performance. So making sure that as they go through and they perform, that we may come up with different goals for them as they're attaining them, seeing what's correct for that student. So the goal setting theory has some strengths with this. Goal setting can be very powerful. I know for a fact that working with students and setting goals with them and or staff, we can have a positive effect on making sure they're attaining those things. Once again, making sure they're applicable for that student. And then if specific enough, they can be really desirable. They can motivate that student to really try to attain that, because they're going to feel that much better about themselves. And on the flip side, some weaknesses, it can narrow some other performance indicators. We might leave some things out every once in a while in regards to what is really, really important for that student. Just because they may only be able to attain a C average. We may not want to make sure that we're not trying to go too high or narrow other things. And then they can be hindered by the complexity of the job and the material. So we have to be very careful that if they're learning something brand new, that we don't try to throw some really unattainable goals at that student. So all in all, some of the things to think about there as you go through and think about your classrooms. For some questions for you is, number one, what does motivation look like in your classroom? How do you go about motivating your students? Number two, what kinds of motivation do you currently use in your classroom? I'd like to know some of those ways in which you do that. And number three, what are three of your favorite motivation theories, and how would you implement them? So as you go to look at this, you may not agree totally with what I have, but I'm interested to see what motivation theories that you have in place, or things that you believe in, and how you implement them. So once again, thanks for joining us here today as we go through this, and have a great rest of your week.